Welcome to the Melly Up Movement podcast. This podcast brings reality, it brings real people into the limelight of you watching this. Every single guest has been through something traumatic in life and now is doing absolutely truly incredible things. I want to share their relatable journeys and exactly how they get there. A big thanks to my sponsors, Amplified Nutrition, who provide tailored nutrition and training plans to help people improve their lifestyle and love the body they're in.
Baby. Melly Up Movement, baby.
Jax,
hello.
Welcome down. Firstly, thanks for making the 4-hour journey down.
There's no problem.
That's absolute dedication. I'm really, really grateful and appreciate it. Normally I do an insight into guests that come on a podcast, so I might know a little bit about their backgrounds, but I'm going to leave this one blank. Because one, I don't actually know too much about you, apart from obviously the main subject that will pop up. So yeah, I ask all my guests, who was little Jax and the journey you've been on to be the Jax you are, having an impact on the world today?
Well, it's kind of a strange question for me, that one, just because I have only been Jax for coming up to 2 years now. So I was born a female. My name was Jess, and I began the transition from female to male coming up to about 2 years ago now. And yeah, that set me on sort of a journey of sharing my own story and trying to show people that you have to do what terrifies you to find true happiness. So it brings me here talking to you now.
Unreal. So talk to me about, so who was Jess? Jess growing up?
Jess was someone who was just really desperate to be happy. Just really, really wanted to be happy. You know, had everything in life from being a little kid that would equal happiness. You know, I had the most amazing family, the most amazing friends. You know, I couldn't have wanted for anything. But within me, there was just a very deep unhappiness, and it took me to the age of about 26, 27 to start really realising what that was. That sort of presented itself in a million different ways growing up. And yeah, like I said, it took me to being about 26, 27 to actually go, this is what it is.
And so at school, what was that like for you if you wasn't sort of truly... Because most children at school would be like sort of happy, just running around, like just causing chaos. What was that? What was school like for you?
I've definitely caused chaos through life. Like, mum and dad definitely would say that. I was always a tomboy. Jess was always a tomboy. But like really happy, you know, just not internally happy now as I explain it, but a happy sort of positive kid and always having a good time. But I think I always had an element of anxiety in different ways. And you know, my mum said from being a baby you'd be asleep, and then she'd give me the bottle and with the, you know, it says Avent on a bottle or whatever, and I'd be asleep, and then she'd give me the bottle, and I'd just wake up, spin it round, and put my thumb on the A, and then go back to sleep. And I'd be like, "What's wrong with this child? Like, what? You was asleep? Like, what are you doing?" And just little tiny elements, you know, what we all have, but little elements of anxiety from being really young, and I think it started to really take over me when I started high school, and I had to be a girl, I think, in terms of, you know, having to wear a skirt at school, or having to like feel like you need to fit in and all these things. And to me, I didn't know what I know now. Obviously, I just thought that I was anxious, and my mum just thought I was anxious. There was always an element of being uncomfortable. You know, going shopping for clothes and stuff like that, and thinking, well, I don't really want to go in the girls section because I don't like the girls' clothes, but I can't go in the boys section because I'm not a boy. And the amount of shopping trips where I'd just end up crying and just leaving from being really young like that, and just feeling so uncomfortable with myself. That's kind of how it was, really.
Crazy. So you just had no idea.
It was just an element of being uncomfortable. And then as I sort of went through high school, I think I was about 14, 15, and I just decided like that I wanted to move school. And I think for me, it was always wanting to run away, to start again, to be the real me. Not really knowing what that meant, but having that need and that want to do that. So there was absolutely no reason for me to move school whatsoever. Like, I was fine, I was happy, you know. And I convinced my mum and dad that that's what I needed to do, because I was so set on the fact that I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Even though I couldn't put my finger on why, I just wasn't. And so I convinced them to let me move school in year 8, year 9. And I moved school, and 2 months later I wanted to go back.
No way.
And luckily the school let me go back, but the chaos that I've caused like for my mum and dad is just unbelievable. And I look back now and I know why. You know, I was just trying to, in my head, I was trying to be the real me. I was trying to start again. I was, you know, it's really hard to explain, but that was the feeling. Like I'm not the real me, and I don't know why. And
do you think a different environment was going to save that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was always searching for something. You know, I'll do that, so that'll make it better. I'll be friends with them, so that'll make it better. I'll go there. I'll do this. You know, and my idea of happiness when I was young was, if my mum and dad are proud, then that means I'll be happy. So I just threw myself into everything that I was good at, whether that was, you know, playing sport or, you know, being really family orientated and just focusing on the things that I was good at, because I thought if my mum and dad are proud, then that's the goal. That'll make me happy. That's fine. Oh. And kind of just suppressed everything else. But
a lot of external happiness was you were searching for, but really internally.
Yeah, 100%, like 100%, it was massively internal. You know, I look back now, and from being really young to probably being about 21, 22 years old, I used to, the prayer is the wrong word, but I used to like say things over and over in my head. So when I was little, I used to say, and I don't know where it come from, but I used to start saying, please don't anything bad happen. And I used to say these things, and it sounds fucking crackers. But I used to say in my head all the time, over and over, I don't want anything bad to happen. I love being a girl. I wouldn't change anything. And just please everything be okay. And these 4 little like phrases in my head, and whether it was like a form of OCD or anxiety or a mixture of a lot of things. I mean, now I know. But from being really little, it was just something that would just spin around my head all the time. And I never ever like told anybody that until recently. But I look back now and I'm like, I was literally trying to convince myself that I was happy with who I am.
Yeah. Because
I loved the person that I am and my soul and my life and my family. I was trying to convince myself that there is no reason for you to be unhappy. Why are you unhappy? You need to convince yourself that you're all right and you are who you are.
Yeah. So there's basically just a little affirmation in your head.
Yeah, like the completely wrong one, but yeah.
Just goes to show the knowledge of
realise how fucking crackers I am. This conversation goes, mate.
So, did you ever think, shit, I need to talk to someone? Did you talk to your parents about anything? Because what was your like around friends?
I was always sort of this like happy, bubbly person, but in myself, never really felt like I fit in. So I was quite. I mean, I was a young girl. I was a tomboy. I didn't sort of look masculine young, but I felt that way, and that was something that, you know, if I had an argument with someone or someone, you know what school's like, and kids can be really horrible. That was the go-to, you know. You're a man, or whatever. And you used to get called a man all the time.
Is that what they used to say?
From being really young, yeah. And it used to really hurt me, obviously, because, you know, no one would like that anyway, to be misgendered regardless of how you feel.
Did you deal with a lot?
And I didn't.
Did you deal with a lot of bullying?
I wouldn't call it bullying, but at times I think, I don't know really, because I can't say it was bullying because it wasn't like a targeted isolation sort of thing. But
is it like friends that would have dropped comments? I had it, little fuckers.
Yeah,
I thought I was mates with, and then turns out they're just cunts.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, just... Sorry, I don't know how to explain it. If there was ever a problem with someone, or I fell out with someone, or someone didn't know me, you know, then that's what they would call me. And recently, actually, I had a conversation with an old school friend of mine who I hadn't seen for about 10 years, and I sort of delved into my life at school. And I think I find it hard to talk about because it's something I've blocked out. I think my experience at school was horrendous mentally. And I don't think it's ever something that I've like delved into, because it was so uncomfortable, and it's upsetting when I had a conversation with my mum the other week about it, and I got like really upset, and I can't cry anymore. Like, testosterone's got rid of my tears. But it was an experience that really sort of upset me. And I had this conversation with an old friend, and she said, you know, people used to say to her, like, why are you friends with Jess? Like, she's a man. You know, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like, and obviously my friends was just like, what? Like, she's just my mate. But like, especially lads, you know, lad culture in school at 14, 15 years old, and, you know, they want the good looking girl with all the makeup and whatever else. And they looked at me and thought, you know, you're a man. I wasn't I wasn't like that girly girl. So when I look back now, it was horrendous, but I think it's something that I've kind of like put in a box. But I think about it mentally, and I just did not enjoy school whatsoever. Like, so many people say I'd love to go back to school, and I'm like, not a fucking chance. Never will I go back to that environment. But it's yeah.
What was horrendous about it?
Just the feeling of you had so many friends, but you feel like you're friends with no one, and you don't really feel like you belong to anyone, and you've got this level of anxiety where you don't know who's your friend and who's not, and you're analysing that all the time, and you're just trying to do the right thing and fit in, but you don't really sort of acknowledge with anyone else. And then, yeah, as soon as there was a tiny problem with anyone, it was just, that was the go-to insult. And it's something that you sort of learn to deal with, isn't it? But looking back, I wish I could look back and say, it's going to be all right. Like, just tell them all to fuck off, because you're going to fly. But
it's not that easy when you're that young. Them journeys home from school, mate, trust me, I know. So mental health, did that take a little bit of a battering at school? Yeah,
so it just kind of started to get progressively worse, to be honest. When I left school, I went to college, and between the ages of, like, say, 16 to 18, I absolutely tried my best to be that girl from Wigan, you know, going out and in dresses and 6-inch heels and long hair, and trying to be that girl, you know, like having boyfriends and just trying to be that sort of becoming a woman sort of thing. Tried my best to be that person, and for a while I thought, oh, yeah, I'm doing it, I'm fine, you know. But then coming up to 18, my mental health just took a nosedive, and I just became so anxious and so lost in what I wanted to do with my life and who I was and where I wanted to go. And at the time, I think I was starting to question my sexuality with being attracted to women, and all of that in a small town, you know, like Wigan now as well. It's not, back then, I didn't know any gay women at all, you know. That in itself was something I was like, no, I'm not, no. And my mum and dad, you know, thought that way before I did. Like, my mum rang me up once when I was working in Total Fitness, and I was like, oh, good evening, Total Fitness Wigan, how can I help? My mum was like, love, are you gay? And I'm like, Mum, what are you talking about? But at that time, I was like, no, like, oh, no, I'm not, you know, and I believed that.
Yeah.
Like, I used to convince myself of things so strongly that I was like, no. But yeah, I used to go to work, like, at Total Fitness, and I'd do a shift, and I'd come home, and you know, my mum would just be being my mum, like, have you had a good day or whatever. And at that point, I was just like, I don't want to talk. I don't want you to even look at me. And I thought that was because I'd done a long shift and I just didn't want to talk to anyone. And I look back now and I think, no wonder you didn't want anyone to look at you. Like, you hated yourself. You absolutely hated yourself. And I just became not a very nice person to be around, especially for my mum and dad who I lived with. And I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want anyone to look at me. I didn't know who I was. I was probably clinging on to toxic people. Like, anyone who sort of would make me feel good in a moment, I would cling to that friendship because I was like, oh, well, you'll make me happy, or you'll make me happy. And then in another sense, I was probably clinging to friendships because I was realising that I was a gay woman at the time.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot going on, but
Nothing inside.
yeah, just chaos, just absolute chaos. And after that, when I was about 18, I made the decision to join the RAF. Because I was just going downhill, and
What, mentally?
yeah, and
How bad did it get?
at that point, pretty bad. Like, I just wasn't really there. I couldn't pinpoint it, and I didn't really communicate it very well. I just became a bit of a dickhead. I was just a bit like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go home. I don't want to. And so I made the decision to join the RAF, because I thought, this is, I've always been so into my sport. I'm a tomboy. It's a masculine role. It puts me in uniform. It gets me out of Wigan. It'll show me the world. All these things. So I applied and I joined the RAF police, and so I left when I was 19, and went to RAF Halton and started RAF basic training.
Fucking hell. Why? Why the RAF? That's a massive transition.
So initially, I was just looking into Army RAF, and my mum and dad didn't want me to join the army at the time because they had the perception that was more dangerous. And I'd always wanted to join the police. And so I thought, well, it's kind of like it will be a good sort of mixture for me. And it was something that interested me. And I got in and I joined, and I'll be honest, it changed my life. It was the most amazing thing to do, and I would encourage anyone now, young people to join the military, because it takes you out of that bubble. It takes you out of that small town mindset and shows you that there's so much more to the world, and there's so much more places, and there's so much opportunity, and there's so many different people, and for me as well, I went straight into an environment where most of the women were gay, which then made me go, oh, that's what's been up with me. And so when I joined the RAF, I was getting paid to play rugby. I was flying all over the world. I was challenged all the time. I was in a uniform, so I didn't have to be Jess. I was just in a uniform. And I was surrounded by so many women who were like me. They were women, but they were into the sport, and they were strong, and they were gay, and they were owning that, and they owned who they were.
Empowered.
Yeah, and I just felt really empowered by everything about the RAF, and I've got so much pride from being a part of that. And for a long time, everyone, me and my family, thought we've hit the nail on the head here. You were struggling with your sexuality, and you needed to be challenged. You needed to be mentally and physically challenged all the time.
Just away from small-minded people as well.
Yeah, just, because I used to go home, after a few months on a weekend, and not that there's anything wrong with this, but people are doing the same thing. People are, they're going the same pubs, they're having the same conversations. Nothing's changed.
You know what? And that's a massive thing, because that's why. So when I first started life coaching, I got so much fucking hate. And it's just from fucking idiots that are just static and they've done fuck all with their life for the last 5 years and they think, oh shit, that kid's doing all right. He's a prick.
Drag you down,
exactly, yeah. I'll just laugh and smile now.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you're watching this and it's one of you and you probably do watch all my stuff, fuck you.
That's the thing though, they'll still watch you.
Yeah, of course they will. Thanks for the view.
Yeah.
Throw some hate on the comments as well, build the algorithm up. That's the way you've got to deal with it though, isn't it? You might as well just laugh,
100%. But yeah, that's the thing, and you're going back and you see these things, and you know, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want, but it's not what I wanted, and it reminded me that I was doing the right thing because I didn't want to just be in the same place doing the same thing, trying to be someone that I'm not, and the RAF massively develops me as a person, and it makes you grow up fast, and you know, you've left home and you're surrounded by so many diverse people, and it's incredible, and I was playing a lot of rugby union at the time, which there's a big opportunity for women to do that in the military. You know, they put so much resources into sport. You know, I'd be away for a few weeks at a time, like in Florida playing rugby, and I'd be like, yeah, it's my job. You know, and then I'd come back, and don't get me wrong, I went to the worst places in the world and the best places in the world, but that as a whole was something that I wanted. I wanted variety in my life, and I don't really function well if I'm not being challenged.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like being, like you said, I don't like being static. I don't like being, well, what am I achieving here? What am I doing? What life's just passing me by.
Yeah. You're definitely fucking challenged in the job you got now.
Well, yeah. Yeah. You see, I can be addicted, see?
So what made the, obviously feeling at the RAF, and then obviously feeling like you actually had purpose and you were someone there? Because to everyone, it's non-judgmental. It's just like, are you right, Jess?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's just...
And you've probably felt at home for the first time.
Exactly, yeah. And that is what changed. You know, my mum and dad saw me, you know, become the person that I was again. You know, I was happy, I was fit, you know, I was mentally in a good place, I was surrounded by good people, I was travelling all over the country. And that was all fantastic. And the thing with me that I've learned is, coming up to before realising I needed to transition, was everything that I did to fill the void had a time frame to it. So whether that was, I'll buy a new car, that'll make me happy, but you know, that'll only last a few weeks and then that'll be done. With the RAF, probably 3 years in, and I hit the brick wall again. And it was because I was playing a lot of rugby. They posted me to, so I was on a tactical unit initially for my first few years, where you basically travel all over the world guarding military planes and what's on it. That was, you know, I was always in different places. I was never still to sit with me. So I was good, and I got posted to a desk job so that I could play more rugby. So I became an intelligence analyst because they wanted me in a certain location to play rugby, and then I just boom, my head fell off again because I was just sat at this desk, and I had to deal with me. Like, there was nothing else. There was, you know, I couldn't. There was no distraction. There was no like, oh, I'm going here, or I'll do this, I'm going doing that. I was just sat at a desk dealing with Jess, and I just started to like plateau again and just become quite depressed and quite not okay.
Because you spent so long running away from your thoughts.
Exactly.
When you become still, it's game over, isn't it? I was just filling a void all the time. You know, that'll make me happy. I'll buy a house, I'll buy a car, I'll go here, I'll do this, I'll move there, you know, and that's what I was doing. So when that happened, I was kind of just going downhill again, and then I went on tour. I went on tour to Cyprus and Iraq for 4 months, and whilst I was on tour, I made the decision to hand my notice in. And obviously in the military, you have to you hand your notice in, you have to do a year before you can get out. So I did that whilst I was on tour. So I'd been in about 4 years up to that point. And if I hadn't have been going through what I was going through, I probably would have still been in.
because I have a lot of pride for it and I have a lot of love for what it is. But I just couldn't carry on the way I was. I needed to just go home. I needed to just be around my family. I needed to be around that support system and figure out what on earth was going on. Plus, obviously, going on tour, you know, makes you wobble anyway. So I came back and I didn't leave my mum's side for about 2 months.
Really?
Yeah, like I just...
Back to the safe space.
Yeah, I went hairdressing with her. Like I just went everywhere she went, but I couldn't look anyone in the eye. I was just constantly crying and I didn't know why. I felt like my personality had just fell out my body and I just like lost everything that I was and didn't have a fucking clue what was going on.
Just existing.
Yeah, and I just thought that I had bad mental health and I'd just come back off tour. And that's what I just put it down to that, and I think everyone else did. And I remember asking my mum not long after that, actually, and I said, is it because I want to be a man? Like, is that why I'm so depressed? And I was only, well, how old was I then? I would have been about 23, 24. And I remember like sat at the dining room table and I said to her, like, is that what it is? And she was like, no, like, of course not. You know, you're this beautiful athletic woman. You know, you're unique. You wouldn't be you if you was a man. You wouldn't be. That's who you are. And that's kind of what we both believed in that moment. And my mum says now, you know, if I'd have turned around and said, yeah, and you'd have took that and gone, okay, I'll do it because my mum said, and then it was the wrong decision, she would have never been able to forgive herself. Yeah. It has to come from you.
Yeah, fair point now.
So, you know, I asked her that question and that was it, and I buried it again. But I was starting to get little tiny thoughts of like, is that what it is?
Seeds planted now.
Yeah. And that was the first seed where I'd asked that question.
Then all the little signs start coming out.
Yeah, like literally the first time I'd actually brought it out of me. You know, I'd had like the fleeting thoughts, but never really thought that would ever be possible, you know. Because it's certainly not something I was educated on. It's certainly not something I ever thought could happen. And then I couldn't even entertain the thought of actually that happening. Yeah. But it was the first time that it had come into my head and I'd actually put it out there.
But it's probably already been in your head because of what the kids were saying at school.
Oh my God, like all, you know, I literally used to go out.
That little cunt was right.
Yeah, but you know, I used to go out, coming up to being about 25 from being young, and I'd go out in a dress and honestly, like I don't know if you've seen pictures of me before, but I didn't look like a man at all. But I'd have people coming up to me in pubs being like, "Are you a bloke?" And I'm like, what? Right. Do you know what I mean? And then as soon as I started transitioning, mate, I shaved my head and people come, "You all right, ladies?" I'm like, I can't fucking win. I cannot win. But, and that was heartbreaking at the time. Like, I used to get shouted at in women's toilets and everything, being like, "This is a woman's toilet." And I'm like, I know.
Fucking.
But at the time, it was devastating because no one wants to be humiliated.
No,
like that.
Definitely not.
I don't want to be a man who looks like a woman. I don't want to be a woman who looks like a man. I don't want to be anything other than what I feel is me.
Yeah.
And that was just, So that was the first seed planted. And then I buried it again. And I was off sick from being in the military, but I was still in the military. And I'd applied whilst I'd been on tour to join the prison service. And that sort of came through and got me out of the military a little bit earlier. So I basically went straight from that to that. So I came back off from tour in the March and I joined the prison service in August after being back and forth and stuff, and just went straight into that. And I was like, okay, new void. We'll fill that one now.
Yeah. What was that transition like? You're mad, can't you?
So
most people just go abroad.
Yeah, no.
So for me, I would run away. I would have done 5 seasons in Iron Apple and 1 in Ibiza. That was my version of running away, though.
Yeah, and you know what? I think if I'd have been sort of okay with me and my body, I probably would have done that.
Fair point.
But my addiction was being in uniform. Like I could function in uniform.
Yeah.
You know, like I could go.
It's like your body armor.
Yeah, I could go and do like I'd be so productive in uniform, and then the moment I wake up and I have a day off and I have to think about what to wear or be Jess, I was just fucked. Got nothing done. Whereas if I finished work at lunchtime and I could go and get so much done and feel powerful, but because I was hiding behind that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I joined the prison service. And as a female. Yeah. So that would have been 5 years ago now, and spent my first 3 years as a female prison officer, and I loved it. You know, it was the perfect in between for me between military life and civilian life. You know, it was a service and it was in uniform, but I could live at home and be in control of my own life and sort of build myself up. So it was something that I fell in love with, and for the first couple of years, you know, like everything else, it was something new. It got me going, you know, it challenged me mentally and physically. You know, it let me be around all these different people, and I've always been a person who's been able to talk to people. Every single challenge under the sun comes to you in a prison. You know, you are literally mum, dad, nurse, fireman. Like I knew I could hold my own, but you know, I'm not terrorising prisoners. Like I'm one person.
Yeah.
And the complaint said, if I could choose between being in a shark tank with a shark and being on the landing with Jess Feeley, I'd pick the shark tank every time.
Oh God.
And I was just like, what? Like, what? And you're taking this seriously?
Yeah.
You know, like, this is ridiculous, you know, and we had this conversation, and this governor was telling me, you know, I needed a mentor and I needed to, what's going on? Like, I know there's something wrong, what's happening and whatever else. And I just went completely ballistic. Like, went absolutely mad, thought everyone else was wrong, you know. I'm doing what's right and no one else is doing no one else is doing the job, and I'm just there on my own, like, doing my job and this and that. And I slammed the door and stormed out her office and completely broke down. Like, when I was on my own back in the wing, just completely broke down. Because I think I was just devastated in myself. Like, you know, you're good at your job, you're doing what you do, what's going on here. And I knew what was going on deep down, and I knew that it was coming to a point where I was gonna have to deal with it. And I went off sick then. She brought me in the next day and was like, what's going on? Like, what is actually going on? And I got really upset in that moment, and I was just like, there is something wrong, but I can't tell you what it is. And she was like, well, we'll support you, we'll do this, we'll put this in place, blah, blah. And I'm sat there listening to her thinking, yeah, I'm going off sick.
Yeah.
So the next day, that's what I did. And I just kind of disappeared. When was that? October 2019. Because I couldn't tell anyone, because I hadn't told my mum and dad. And I'd reached a point where I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live anymore. And I needed to figure this out, whatever it was. And I've always said to everyone who I come into contact with, when it feels scary to jump, that is exactly when you jump. Otherwise, you stay in the same place your entire life. And it was my time to listen to my own advice and just go, right, you do this or you die. So what is it? And I made the decision to go, right, okay, well, I'm ready to die anyway, so we're going to just do this. And if it goes wrong, that's fine. So I made the decision to transition, and the prison service had no idea what was going on. I was just off sick, and I sat my mum and dad down, and my brother and my sister, and like I'd done 10 years earlier, you know, tell them I was gay. And 10 years earlier, you know, they'd already known, and you know, my dad sat there before I'd even said it, and I was like gripping my sister's hand. This was like 20 years old, terrified to tell mum and dad that I was gay. They're like, oh, you're gay, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. And that was fine. That was like a really happy conversation because they all expected it. And it was all fine. And then 10 years later, we sat there again, and my dad put his foot in it again. But it didn't go down as well. So
what did he say?
So they were all sat there, and obviously they knew that I was going to tell them something because we was in the same situation. They were like, right, you're pregnant? No. You getting a puppy? No. No. And then my dad, like, you know, and he's a joker, and he was sat there and he's like, you're not having a sex change, are you? Like, as a joke, like, just like passing a comment, taking the piss. And I was like, oh, yeah. Just...
No way.
And I just had to be like, yeah, I am. And he literally, bless him, he just went yellow. Like, he was just, like, and it was like they'd all just been slapped across the face.
Really?
And it's just, it was a shock, obviously. Like, the only person who had a tiny inkling was maybe my mum. But it was just a shock. And with parents, massively, it's fear. Like, fear for your child in terms of, you know, my mum always says, like, life's hard enough. Like, I don't want you to have to deal with life, even with it being even harder, and what abuse might you get, and how are you going to, like, navigate this? And, you know, it's there's so much fear from parents.
Yeah.
And I sort of went into this with the mindset of I have to be as understanding as possible, because my transition doesn't just affect me, it affects everyone around me. It affects my mum, my parents, my family, my friends, my colleagues. Like, it affects everybody. And if we don't start having these uncomfortable conversations and allowing people to make mistakes and grow and learn and understand, then how are we going to move forward? Like, how is anyone going to learn about this if we don't start having these conversations? And you know, as much as someone doesn't die, you have to grieve a person.
Yeah.
You know, I had to grieve Jess. My mum and dad, you know, they gave birth to a daughter. They named her Jessica. They had thoughts about that daughter. You know, my dad would have walked that daughter down the aisle. You know, all these things that they would have thought of for 27 years, that's not just going to fall out their head. Like, that's hard. And initially, you know, especially me and my dad, we really butted heads for a good few months, because it was just so difficult for them. It was so difficult for them to understand and get their head around, and the panic, like, is this the right decision? Is this just another one of your, like, impulsive decisions to, you know, because I'd made so many, you know, how do we know this is right? How are you going to, like, live? How is this going to happen? Like, I can't just start calling you he and Jax and whatever else. And so we butted heads for a long time. But in the end, it was, I had to say, like, look, it's either a dead daughter or a living son. Like, what is it? Like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I can't stay alive. I can't be your child as anything else. Like, I love Jess. You know, I'm not killing her. I want her to come along with me. I just can't have her be the image anymore. And, you know, slowly but surely, like, we've all just sort of learnt together. And obviously for the first few months, I fucked off. I moved to Brighton. I was like, bye. I can't let anyone see me in this awkward in-between stage of, I'd lost everything that Jess was because I'd come out, but I didn't know who Jax was yet. So I didn't have this identity, you know. I hadn't started hormones. I still had boobs. I was very much just Jess with a shaved head, like, and I'd told everyone I'm Jax, but then I feel like some sort of...
There's no, like, right or wrong way to do it.
Oh,
I mean, I'm sat here trying to just figure out what the fuck. It's not something you hear normally every day, is it?
No.
I'm being honest, I don't even really know how to take it. But that's because I don't come across it every day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's not... People just don't understand, and they don't...
Yeah.
If it doesn't affect you or your life...
Yeah, I couldn't give a fuck, mate.
You don't look into it. So I'd never looked into it. You know, my family had never looked into it until I actually had to embark on that journey. And we've all just sort of, like, learned together, and I felt like a freak. I was like, you know, the relationship that I was in right up until coming out, the person who sort of got me to that point left me at that point, you know, after as that became real. So I was just like, no one's ever going to want to be with me anymore. No one's ever, who's going to want to be my friend? Like, can I go back to work? Can I do that? I can't do that. I can't go back to a prison, you know. So, it was difficult in the first few months, and really my mental health, like that is when I became suicidal bad. When I moved to Brighton, I left everybody and I'd come out because I just didn't know who I was. I was on my own. I was just like, I'm not okay here. Like, I've done this. And people say to me now, you know, my family and my friends, we was all really naive to think, you've done it now, you should be happy.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Like, and I thought that as well. I thought, well, I've done it now. I've come out. I should be happy. But that is the most difficult point because you don't know who you are and you've lost everything, but you've not gained anything. And you're like, oh, who the fuck am I? Like, what do I look like? What do I wear? How do I dress? How do I be? Like, you know, I'm not even used to being called Jack. So how's anyone else going to get used to calling me Jax? So I was like, right, I'm going to have to go back. I said I was going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to take everyone with me. So I moved back up north. And sat there and I was like, right, I miss my family, I miss my friends, I miss my job, like I miss all those things. And I said I was going to do this or I die. So if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to do it properly.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to take everyone on the journey with me and then we're all going to learn together and I'm going to change how this works because...
The ones that love you will just be there.
Yeah.
The ones that don't won't be.
Yeah, because it shouldn't be this fucking frightening to just be yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. So, I made a YouTube video coming out a couple of years ago. So the prison service knew, you know, and the prison in general is like gossip central. As soon as one person knows something within 5 minutes, it'll be round the prison. And I did that on purpose so I didn't have to tell anyone. I was just like, right, you can all know this without me being there. And then obviously I thought, right, I'm going to go back to work and told the prison service and their head fell off as well because they'd not, you know, that prison, they'd never had to deal with that, you know, every policy under the sun, like, what do we do? You know, it's scary for everybody.
Yeah, of course.
And, but I was like, I need to do this. I need to prove that you can still have a life. Like, I need to, and like I said, I was ready to die. So everything I've done over the last, in that first 12 months was, well, I do this or I die. So I go back to work or I die. I'd be out and proud and do this and show everybody and teach everybody and do all these things, or I'm not going to be here, so we'll just do it. And just consistently doing what terrified me every day, like whatever that was. And I went back into the prison and, you know, I said to everyone, like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like, it's okay. Like, as long as nothing's ever malicious, you can ask me anything you want. We can talk about anything you want. You know, I'm learning. Everyone else is learning. And I think from that approach, from what people have told me, it's given people that space and that time to just learn and just feel safe. And, you know, when I first went back, people like had called me miss by accident and then just burst out crying. Like, this nurse once called me miss and then just burst out crying. I was like, it's all right. It's all right. You know, it's like, come on. I'm like taking people into the rooms and I'm like, it's okay. Because people are so frightened of making a mistake, of offending you, of getting in trouble, of getting sacked, of, you know, all these things. I just think, come on, like, people need to just, you just need to, like, just let people, like, learn. How on earth are we going to move forward if everyone's just fucking terrified of it? Yeah,
so true.
And obviously, and I was really open with the prisoners as well. So,
what were they like?
I work on a unit that is specifically for, you know, men who are stuck in the system, who struggle with personality disorder or managing their emotions and, you know, interacting with people and all these things. And so I do a lot of like groups with them, like talking about different things in life and mental health and all these things. And I spoke to them about, you know, being suicidal and having to do the hard things in life and not running away from that. And if you actually want your life to change, you know, that's what you have to do. And sitting there and talking to them about vulnerability and all those things, has given them the courage to change their own life. Like, I sat there with them and said, you know, people are brought up to believe that being courageous is brave and being vulnerable is weak. But the definition of vulnerability is risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. So there is not a single act of courage that doesn't involve risk, uncertainty, or emotional exposure. And if you're not willing to put yourself in a position for it to go really, really bad, you're not putting yourself in a position for it to go really, really good either.
Yeah.
And they massively responded to that, and, you know, sat there and said, like, you're proving to us that officers are human too, and that if you can change your life, if you can walk back into the most volatile place in the world as a transgender man and own that, and, you know, still be that prison officer and still help us and still do all the things that you do, then it's never too late to change my life. And it's been really, really powerful in terms of inspiring prisoners to know that anything is possible, and that you have to do all these difficult things. You can't just run away from it, and you have to look yourself in the mirror on a daily basis and tear yourself apart and go, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
What do I need to change? And we put a transgender awareness event on in the prison, and the prisoners on that unit, I had T-shirts made and they were all wearing them, you know, and they came up to this event, and it was predominantly for staff, and I brought my mum and some of my family into the prison, and there was about 150 people there, and I'd made a documentary talking to, like, I was speaking, and my mum and my sister and my friends and my governors, and everyone was speaking about what Jess was like and the transition and what they've learned from it and all of these things to celebrate a year transitioning, basically. And the room was just silent for like an hour while everyone watched this documentary, and everyone was like crying, and the prisoners were so unbelievably proud to be part of it. Like, it was unbelievable, because as a prisoner it can put you in a very dangerous situation, sticking up for an officer or being like that. And they were making speeches, you know, like one of them made a speech about before we went up to the event. He said to me, I'm going to wear my jumper under my T-shirt. And I was like, why? And he went, well, and he's got very, very bad self-harm scars on his arms. He was like, I've never been off the unit in 15 years without a long sleeves on. And I was like, but what do we always talk about? Like, them scars are proof that you got through it. You know, do what terrifies you. On the back of that T-shirt, it says, be unapologetically you, what you doing? And he did. And he went up and he took his long sleeve shirt off, and he went up in his T-shirt, and he made a speech, you know, talking about me and the effect that it had on him, and then addressed the whole room and was like, Mr. Feeley's changed my life, and really? I've just come up here after 15 years, and I've got self-harm scars on my arms, and I've always been ashamed of them, and he's just taught me that I don't need to do that, and I've come up here today and I want to tell you all. And sick. It's just massively, like, it's really touching, because just showing someone your vulnerabilities can massively help someone else have the courage to go.
It's a superpower, mate, because no one can hurt you.
Unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you can take the piss out of yourself and or let your close mates take the piss out of your biggest insecurities, no one in this world can ever touch you. When I first went back, I was shouting at prisoners. My voice was hitting the roof, because I was basically going through puberty for the first 2 years. And I was literally like, there we go, there's non-existent balls dropping. Like, but if you've got to, like, you've got to sort of, like, I get scared all the time going in situations, but if I own it, then everyone else feels okay. Yeah. And then if everyone else feels okay, then I feel okay.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just about going, right, it's okay, it scares me, but fuck it. And just doing it all the time. And I think there's so much growth in that it's unbelievable.
Sick. What's life like now?
It's good. It's doing that event sort of inspired me to do so much more, and over the last year I've just been on a mission to become the face of being a transgender man in this country, because there isn't someone who everybody knows. You know, a lot of people can name a trans woman because there are a lot more in the media, and it's a lot more spoken about, and it's a lot further on than trans men are. But visibility is the thing that proves to someone that their life is worth living. So if you see someone in the media, you need to be able to go, that's what I feel like, or that's who I am, or that's what I want to do. And there was never that for me, you know, when I was younger, even coming up to being 27 and having to do this, you know, it's I'm trying to build a movement to show that the most powerful thing in the world is to just live your truth, no matter what. And the people who matter will be beside you. And if you're not putting yourself out there and doing what scares you, then I'm absolutely not interested in what you've got to say. Like, I get so much more shit on TikTok than I do in a prison. I'm thinking, I work in a fucking prison. You think I'm scared of your keyboard telling me I should be electrocuted? Like,
is that the type of shit you get?
Mate, people tell me I should have killed myself all the time. Like, I need electrocuting and what's wrong with the world.
It's all just usernames as well. It's never like actual pages.
And I think, what is wrong with you? Like, are you that bored?
Yeah.
And if people in prison can open their minds and tell me that they would never have agreed with it if they didn't know me as a person, if they didn't learn, or if they didn't, you know,
I think that's probably, I'll be completely honest, I think that's where I'm at. And I think it would take for me to actually sit down and understand the reasoning behind it, because whether it's not something that's completely normal, I wouldn't be able to sit here and give an opinion on it because I'm just not come across it.
Exactly. And like I said before,
but it's being honest about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's just about you can give someone. So if someone says something wrong, you can give someone that information. If they then want to continue being an arsehole, then they're an arsehole.
Yeah.
But if they take that information and think, oh, actually, yeah, and go away and think about that, and change their opinion and be more respectful about it, then that's all you can do. Like, I'm not up for jumping down people's throats straight away. Like, my dad is a completely different man now. You know, 2 years ago, obviously, he was terrified. He was like, we're going to have to leave Wigan. I'm going to end up punching everybody. Like, terrified.
But I bet he sees the fun side in life now and that.
Whereas now, he told me a couple of weeks ago, so he was in work and he's recently started a new job and he's the manager wherever he is. And he was listening to a lot of the girls in the, I think it was in the admin or reception or something. And only a few people, because he'd only been there a few weeks, only a few people had known about like his kids and about me and whatever else. And this woman was talking and she was saying, you know, they were talking about gender for some reason. They were like, well, I think if you're born with that, that's what you are. And, you know, not being malicious, but just uneducated and, you know, just...
Your old man steps in.
So my dad's right. So my dad's sat there listening to this, right? And obviously I've, like, been doing everything I'm doing and he's listened to me do what I'm doing and saying, you just allow people to understand. And obviously he's been through it himself. He knows how important it is to give people time. And I'm so proud of how he handled it. It was unbelievable. And he went to the HR woman who knew about me and stuff and said, like, what do I do here? You know, like, I don't know her name, Tracy. You know, if I go and tell her that now, she's going to want the floor to swallow her up. Like, she's going to feel horrendous because she said it in front of him. Like, I could have been sat there, do you know what I mean? Know. So this one was like, it's all right, I'll speak to her. So she went and spoke to her and my dad went up to her later on and was like, all right now, love. And this one was just like burst out crying and was just like, Terry, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean it. And was so upset and mortified that had happened. And my dad was like, it's all right. Like, just be mindful of what you're saying and who's around
it's
you.
So
and,
true, though.
You know, go on his YouTube and listen to his podcast and blah, blah, blah. And he come home and he told me that. And I was like, have you any idea what you've just done?
Yeah.
Like, you've just changed a mindset. And you've probably changed several mindsets because...
Well, then whoever she's gone and spoke to about it,
she'll take that home and she would have been really moved by that. And she will go and look into it more and be mindful of what she's saying and she won't do that again.
It's uneducated people and it's more just following the crowd as well.
Oh, 100%, yeah, 100%. But
I think it's very powerful what you said. It's either a dead daughter or a new son. That was the switch for me. Fair fucking play. If this is what's got to make you happy, do your thing, innit?
You've just got.
Thing is, it don't actually affect anyone else's life.
No.
In the fucking slightest.
No.
And this is the maddest thing. People will judge. People will just chat absolute waffle. Yeah. And when it comes down to it, like, how much does it actually affect your life?
I know. And it's scary. Like, it's scary every day, and it's scary for...
But that's normally because of people that are unhappy within themselves.
Yeah, you know, like, the government now are threatening to take all trans rights away. You know, it's just terrifying, and people want to annihilate you just for existing, and that is terrifying, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because little kids need to see in the media that's who I am.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be so terrifying.
It's mental to think that people would rather someone took their life and parents lose a child than to just do what they need to do.
Exactly. And
world.
people, families still abandon the children, for that, or disown them, or not speak to them, or, force them into conversion therapy, and, it's...
Or even if people become gay, it's like, oh, it's disgusting. But then if two girls, everyone's like, fucking fair play.
Yeah,
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Think about that.
It's okay to just learn and grow and change your mind, and you don't have to be in a box, and you just let people live. Like they're all right. And I think now
that's fuck all to do with anyone anyway.
Yeah, like my mum and dad now, I think, have seen how much happier I am. Like how much more, like how full of life I am. I want to wake up in the morning. I'm happy, like I'm living a life. I can...
Sick, good for you.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm doing all these things, and I'm achieving things that I never thought that I would achieve. And that's incredible. And obviously, like, working in the prison is massively fulfilling to me, working with them, because I can sit there and they know that I'm not chatting shit. Like, they look at me and go, well, yeah, but you know what it's like to change. You know what it's like to feel like this. You know what it's like to do
relatability.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and it makes people go, oh, if you can touch people's heart with what you're saying, their emotions, then you can make people wake up and listen. And to look at how amazing my mum and dad are now, and how far they've come, and my family is just incredible. I just think it should not be so terrifying to just be you.
What a fucking story. I'm mind blown, mate. I don't even know what to say.
I feel like I've just talked at you.
No, that's, mate, perfect. Perfect. I'm just sat here, and it's, I said to Laurie coming in, I've been interested in it, and then when you popped up on to do it, I was like, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, it's just about like reaching new audiences and just making people listen, because people are so scared of the word and that whole thing that they're just terrified of talking about it, and just think, we just need to make it normal. Like, I'm just a normal person. Like,
you're a human being at the end of the day. You still got thoughts, feelings.
Exactly, and it's like you said, it's not about people taking their own life. Like, and that's what's happening, because it's so terrifying and scary and dangerous to just be you.
Yeah, it's fucked.
So we have to break the ceiling, and just, if I can go back into a prison as a trans man, anyone can do anything. Like, I'm not being funny. And you can imagine me now when someone's crying, I'm like...
Yeah, I know, 100%. Fucking hell. So, Melior means for the pursuit of the better in Latin. Yeah. How do you plan on pursuing the better in life?
I just plan on reassuring people that you are the revolution that you're waiting for, and that you have to do what terrifies you.
I think you're fucking sick.
Oh, thank you.
It's honestly so brave to do that. So brave to have done whatever you've ever done.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And it's good to stop fucking running away. And I'll be completely changed my mind and my perspective on it.
Oh wow. Well,
I've never come across it, so I probably would have been closed off to it, because it's never interested me in the slightest. But to sit down opposite, and then it's actually like, shit, how would I feel if my parents, or how would it be if my parents lost their child because they wasn't happy in who they were being? And it's like, it's not just that person, it's then the fucking domino effect, isn't it?
Yeah, and if any parents are listening, the only thing that child needs is to just be accepted and loved and feel safe. Yeah, and they will shine. They will absolutely fly.
Just got to stay in your own lane and just do what makes you happy at the end of the day.
And I hope if you ever get a client who needs to talk about this stuff, then you're a whole new man.
100%. 100%. All right, we're going to have a three-way call. I'm going to bring someone in. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, mate.
For telling your story, for telling your journey. I know that's going to inspire so many on so many different angles. Yeah. So just to be able to, you've definitely, for me now, it's literally, I'm not going to lie, like my mindset now is just like, what do Jacks do? Because sometimes I come up against things. If I do public speaking or something, there's nerves and that are there. And I'm like, if they can fucking change their whole being, then you can talk in front of however many people. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that. I do really appreciate it, because that is now just like actually put loads into perspective, that whatever we fear in life, that anxiety in the stomach shouldn't even be there. Fuck. Yeah, that's
good.
mad.
Just
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
it,
And the
feel
fact
it
that you
and
can go, you ain't just done it, you've gone back into a prison as well.
Right, it's all fun and games. Keeps it interesting.
That's
doesn't it?
mad, mate. Mad mindset. Fair play to you.
I appreciate your words. Thank you.
And thank you for coming down as well. Appreciate it.
I love Brighton.
That's good. Can enjoy the rest of the day. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please push this into the path of someone that you may feel will benefit from it, which will probably be the 100% of you, because you can all go out of your fucking comfort zone, which is what Jax has proved that you can fucking do. As always, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and Melly a fucking movement, baby.
Melly a movement, baby.